tonight.
They came in illegally, they go out legally.
The president is forging ahead with planned ICE raids to deport thousands of families this weekend. And this video of a guardsman jumping onto a drug sub shows at-sea takeovers in action. Plus,
this was him, not me.
The state of the cabinet after the Secretary of Labor calls it quits in the wake of a sex trafficking deal.
You are a punk. You're not a journalist, you're a punk.
And the altercation at the White House that's putting journalists in a bad light.
Well, the biggest nuclear threat remains Russia.
Plus, the threat of a nuclear weapon extends beyond North Korea and Iran. And on the horizon of 50 years since this.
The heavens have become a part of man's world.
We bring you the faith story behind mankind's first trip to the moon. All that and more tonight on Faith Nation. Illegal immigrants put on notice. Welcome to Faith Nation. I'm Jenna Browder.
And I'm Eric Phillips in for John Jessup tonight. Illegal immigrants are on the edge of a deportation raid situation scheduled to begin this Sunday.
And this is top Democrats like Speaker Nancy Pelosi lobby Christian evangelical leaders to call on President Trump to stop the raids.
CBN News White House correspondent Ben Kennedy joins us live from the North Lawn where the president talked about his plan. Ben.
Well, Eric and Jenna, President Trump made clear this weekend's migrant raids are a go. He's promised the removal of millions of illegal aliens, and come Sunday, some 2,000 could face deportation.
I have an obligation to do it. They came in illegally, they go out legally.
President Trump is not backing down on plans for a nationwide raid.
We are really specifically looking for bad players, but we're also looking for people that came into our country, not through a process. They just walked over a line. They have to leave.
ICE agents are targeting undocumented migrants in as many as 10 cities.
Now is not the time to panic.
Today, members of the Hispanic Congressional Caucus condemned the idea.
This president is also trying to pander to the right-wing fringe by demonizing our immigrant neighbors.
This after House Speaker Nancy Pelosi admitted Hispanic evangelicals helped convince the president to call off the first round of deportations.
They were very concerned that this goes too far because these raids were not what they signed up for with President Trump. And I think their calls to the president made a difference.
Now she's calling on those same leaders to try to stop this weekend's planned raids.
I'm going to appeal to the people of faith, the faith-based organizations, to appeal to the president. I think that they put him in office and they have a better voice for this.
We talked to one of those leaders, Reverend Tony Suarez, who said they are working with the White House.
Nobody wants raids. Nobody wants a raid to take place. What we have been assured is that if there is a raid, it's very targeted and limited in its scope.
But the president is putting the blame squarely on Democrats.
What the Democrats should be doing now is they should be changing the loopholes. They should be changing asylum.
Senator Lindsey Graham is joining other GOP leaders heading to the southern border Friday with the vice president.
To deport people who've gone through the process and lost their case, to me, is not cruel.
Now, Vice President Mike plans to emphasize that point during his border visit. He's there right now with the media and even lawmakers, touring a detention center to see firsthand the immigration crisis. Pence says agents are overwhelmed and Congress needs to act now. Eric, Jenna.
All right, Ben Kennedy at the White House, thank you. Well, the president is commending the bravery of the Coast Guard after what he called an amazing drug seizure caught on camera. Take a look at this.
Este es Juan Costas de los Estados Unidos. Auto su barco, ahora. Auto su barco.
A Coast Guardsman yelling abandoned ship. The Coast Guard seized some 39,000 pounds of cocaine worth $569 million over the course of 14 at-sea takeovers just like this one. The June 18th video shows guardsmen leaping onto a 40-foot narco submarine loaded with more than 17,000 pounds of cocaine. The semi-submersible cartel-funded vessels are infamously elusive and are almost never spotted. A Coast Guard spokesman compared them to a white whale.
Now to election 2020. New polling shows Joe Biden and Elizabeth Warren leading the pack of Democrats hoping to win the White House. The NBC News Wall Street Journal poll shows the former vice president with 26% among Democratic primary voters, Warren at 19%. And rounding out the top four are Kamala Harris and Bernie Sanders, both at 13%. Now, Biden is most popular with African Americans, older Democrats, and moderates. Most of Warren's support comes from self-described liberals and younger Democrats.
Secretary of Labor Alex Acosta is out. His resignation coming as a surprise today, just one day after he held a public news conference fighting for his job. Today, the president made sure to distance himself from Acosta, who came under fire for his handling of a 2008 plea deal with billionaire Jeffrey Epstein. Epstein is accused of sexually abusing dozens of underage girls.
This was him, not me, because I'm with him. And in so many ways, I just hate what he's saying now, because we're going to miss him.
I do not think it is right and fair for this administration's Labor Department to have Epstein as the focus rather than the incredible economy that we have today. And so I called the president this morning. I told him that I thought the right thing was to step aside.
And Acosta's resignation means his replacement will become the 7th official in the president's cabinet with an acting role. Officials with acting titles now helm 9 key agencies in the Trump administration, including the FAA and FDA.
And with that, we want to bring in Caitlin Condit, CBS News political director, for some analysis. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me, guys.
Glad to have you. What do you make of this whole resignation on behalf of Acosta?
Well, I think it's clear that the president headed into the week not wanting him to have to resign. As you guys mentioned, he gave the press conference yesterday, but it was clear that the story just wasn't going away, and they were not going to weather this storm. And it became too much of a distraction for the Department of Labor, who, as Acosta said, would rather be talking about the economy heading into the 2020 presidential election than Epstein.
And what does it mean for President Trump? You know, he came out there and said, this is Epstein's decision, not mine. And he had some glowing words for, Acosta, not Epstein, glowing words for Acosta.
Right, and again, I think he really would have preferred for him to stay, but it was just clear that this was going to be a distraction. And the one thing that is clear about this administration is that everything's unprecedented. So as you mentioned, we're going to have more acting cabinet secretaries than we've seen, but I think the administration would say that it's very hard to get these jobs passed on the Hill, especially given the divisive nature of Washington these days. And President Trump also told my colleague at CBS News, Margaret Brennan, earlier this year, that he actually likes having acting cabinet secretaries because in some ways it kind of keeps them on their toes. And if he wants to make changes, he can make changes. So this is a very unusual presidency, and I think this is just another example of that.
Yeah, well, unconventional is definitely one word you could use to
Correct.
describe it. But as far as all of these acting positions, what does that mean for the administration as a whole in terms of things like stability?
Well, I think in many ways Donald Trump is the messenger, and he's running the show. And we saw today when he came out with that press conference where he addressed several issues that he is driving the train. So again, this is unconventional, and it's like nothing we've seen, but this is how he operates.
On a different topic, Caitlin, ICE will round up illegal immigrants this Sunday, thousands of them. How do you see this playing out?
Well, I think the Democrats will talk about it a lot on the campaign trail over the weekend. But this is clearly an issue that the president wants to be talking about heading into the election. I think he's made the calculation that having a hardline position on immigration and enforcing the rule of law is something that's going to be good for him. And we've seen in the past presidential debate on the Democratic side that many of the candidates have gone really far to the left when they're talking about immigration. So whether it's calling to abolish ICE or decriminalize the border or give health care to undocumented immigrants, they've moved farther to the left. And I think this is a battle that the president wants to have. He's trying to turn the page from Epstein and make the message about immigration.
When you talk about 2020 and the battle that's going to exist there, we see Bernie Sanders climbing and Elizabeth Warren doing the same. How much of a threat is Elizabeth to Bernie?
Well, we saw in a new NBC Wall Street Journal poll today that about 54% of people prefer big change when it comes to policies, and that they want big change, and even if that means there's less of a chance of it getting passed. And of that population of the Democratic primary voters, they prefer Elizabeth Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. Yes, excuse me. And Bernie Sanders is a close second. But then about 41% said that they would prefer a candidate who has more policies that might have more of a chance of passing but not be as bold. And of those voters, they prefer Joe Biden. So I think that, again, this is the divide between the more progressive policies and the more mainstream. And what's interesting about the election is which one is going to prevail. And if it is the more progressive, does that candidate actually have a chance of beating Donald Trump in the general election?
What about Kamala Harris? Just a few seconds left here, but she also got a big bump after that last debate, is climbing in the polls. But some say she went too far in that debate in calling into question Joe Biden's record on race. How do you see this?
Well, I think Kamala Harris clearly had a bump in the polls. She got a lot of media attention after the debate, but we're a long way away from the election. And what I have heard from some of my team in the field is that a lot of people thought, okay, when we're talking about electability, if she was able to bring the case to Joe Biden and at least have a moment, maybe we could see her on stage with President Trump, and that she'd be able to prosecute him and hold him accountable. So, again, long way to go.
And we'll be there every step of the way.
Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, Caitlin.
Thanks, Caitlin. Thanks. Well, coming up, a black eye for Washington journalists. That's what some are saying after a dust-up at the White House.
Introducing the CBN Bible from CBN.com. Now, an easier way to study the Bible and grow in your faith. Highlight your favorite verse. Read separate versions at a glance. Click and read a commentary. Or cross-reference your favorite verse using the Strong's Concordance. All the right tools to study the Bible, all in one place. The CBN Bible, available at cbn.com/Bible or the iTunes App Store.
It has the power to influence weight loss, boost your immune system, and improve brain function.
We've seen an explosion of data on the role of the gut microbiome in health.
The free Build a Better Gut booklet reveals the latest information about the gut microbiome. You'll discover how your gut affects the rest of your health.
The gut microbiome has been linked to depression and cancer and heart disease.
Learn how to build a stronger, healthier gut.
The microbiome, if it's in good composition, are really protecting us all the time from more invasive things.
Get the Build a Better Gut booklet, free from the Christian Broadcasting Network. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com/buildabettergut.
You need to make sure that your microbes are working with you, not against you.
And if you order online, you'll get immediate access to the Build a Better Gut series, a digital copy of the booklet, and related bonus material. Build a Better Gut today. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com/buildabettergut for your free copy.
Here, we're committed to a heritage of rigorous scholarship dating back over 1,000 years.
And to a faith tradition dating back 1,000 more.
This is how we create a culture of inquiry where no topic is off limits.
And a culture of hope.
Anything's possible!
It's Christian leadership.
And it's changing the world for the better.
It's higher learning.
It's greater knowing.
It's what makes us whole.
It's what makes us Regent.
Welcome back. After numerous complaints of bias by major social media sites, President Trump hosted a group of conservatives at the White House Thursday.
And he told them the tech giants won't get away with it much longer. Jennifer Wishon has the story.
The president signaled social media giants should brace for tough actions from his administration as he traded censorship stories with a crowd of conservatives. And demonstrating tensions between those conservatives and the mainstream media, there was even a scuffle in the Rose Garden. It happened as the conservatives at the summit waited alongside the White House press corps for the president to make a statement.
You're threatening me in the Rose Garden. Get him! You are a punk! You're not a journalist, you're a punk!
Go home. Journalist, go home. Hey, Gorka, get a job!
An explosion at the end of a day where conservative activists, thinkers, and influencers enjoyed an open and sympathetic ear from the president.
Together you reach more people than any television broadcast network by far, not even close.
Lila Rose shared how her group, Live Action, has been permanently barred from Pinterest, had viral videos buried on YouTube, and that's not all.
We have been for 4 years banned from doing any advertising on Twitter, and they told us that in order to reinstate our accounts, we'd have to stop calling for the defunding of Planned Parenthood and stop sharing our pro-life content.
Stories like hers are common.
The Daily Signal published a video last year with a pediatrician talking about the dangers of giving puberty blockers to kids. The video went viral on Facebook. In fact, it reached 70 million views when all of a sudden it disappeared. And we took our case to Facebook. We said, why did you take this down off of your platform? It took Facebook a little while to get back to us, but eventually they did restore the video and apologize for doing that.
A Hill TV American Barometer survey in December found 58% of voters think social networks are unfair to conservatives. The same poll found Generation Z, folks born in the mid-1990s and early 2000s, are the only age group that believes social media companies are not biased against conservatives. Missouri Republican Senator Josh Hawley says enough is enough.
Google, Facebook, Twitter, they've gotten these special deals from government. They've gotten a special giveaway from government. They're treated unlike anybody else. If they want to keep their special deal, here's the bargain. They have to quit discriminating against conservatives. You agree with that? No more.
Senator Hawley has introduced a bill that requires these big tech companies to prove their algorithms and content removal practices are politically neutral. Jennifer Wishon, CBN News, Washington.
It's the new Superbook Bible app. It's packed with games, activities, and Superbook episodes that you can watch for free. Oh, no! There's trivia, a fun daily devotional, and answers to your Bible questions. Plus, an easy-to-understand Bible the whole family will enjoy. You can even create your own Superbook character. Ta-da! It's the new Superbook Bible app. Free downloads on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon.
Young people, millennials, are flocking to church.
It's not an exaggeration to say that we love to meet them and that we love to know their stories.
Come home to the Southern Gospel Station from CBN Radio. You'll enjoy a rich Southern blend of bluegrass, classic gospel, and Southern Gospel favorites. CBN Southern Gospel. Available now at cbnradio.com.
Woohoo! Hi, Superbook fans. Here's something else you'll love. It's the new Superbook Bible app. It's packed with games, activities, and Superbook episodes that you can watch for free. Oh, no! There's trivia, a fun daily devotional, and answers to your Bible questions. Plus, an easy-to-understand Bible the whole family will enjoy. You can even create your own Superbook character. Ta-da! Whoa!
Millsburg Falls man, come with...
Sorry, pardon me. Sorry, excuse me. Ouch!
Are you getting this?
Earn super points to win daily prizes, too. And so much more! Time to get back to my adventures. See you soon. It's the new Superbook Bible app. Free downloads on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon.
The Iranian nuclear threat has been grabbing headlines, and other countries, though, already have an arsenal, and Russia is reportedly better equipped than the U.S. right now.
Iran better be careful. They're treading on very dangerous territory.
The president warning Iran after the regime took a number of recent aggressive steps, including raising uranium enrichment levels enough to make nuclear weapons.
Iran, if you're listening, you better be careful. Thank you.
While that's a major potential concern, officials have to keep their eyes on other countries too, especially Russia. Eric Edelman is a former diplomat and Defense Department official.
The biggest nuclear threat remains Russia, because they're the only other country with an arsenal that does pose an existential threat to the United States, although China's arsenal is growing.
And I've been rougher on Russia than any president in the last 50 years.
But the Kremlin is making strides with a new class of ground-based cruise missiles. They outpace the capabilities of the U.S. and other NATO countries. And officials say the weapons violate the decades-old Treaty on Intermediate-Range Nuclear Forces, or INF. The U.S. has already pulled out of that agreement, causing the Pentagon and NATO to quickly develop systems that could fend off a Russian attack. Then there's North Korea. Despite several meetings, the Trump administration has been unable to convince dictator Kim Jong-un to shed nuclear weaponry. The president still optimistic.
You have a man that when I came into office, all he was doing before, under Obama, was testing nuclear weapons and blowing up mountains. And now he's not doing it.
Progress may be a little slower going with Russia, especially against the backdrop of a deteriorating relationship after Russia's involvement in the 2016 U.S. election. The U.S. has not built a new nuclear weapon in over 30 years. That, coupled with aging delivery platforms, has created space for other global powers.
Both Russia and China are investing in new nuclear weapons and new delivery platforms. We've grown very complacent about this because since 1945, nobody has used nuclear weapons in anger. And so I think there's a tendency to think no one will ever do this.
That's not to suggest a premeditated nuclear strike is on the horizon.
Nuclear war would be crazy in the abstract and even in reality. No one's going to just decide to launch it out of the blue.
Michael O'Hanlon, a senior fellow at the Brookings Institution, insists that setting off a nuclear bomb would only ever be the last resort.
The stakes would be extremely high in any kind of direct confrontation between nuclear-armed countries because you don't know at what point the losing side is going to accept defeat rather than escalate to nuclear threats or nuclear use.
While the likelihood of a nuclear war may not be particularly high, U.S. officials understand that when another country, especially a competitor, is better armed, it could take years to catch up, which puts America at a dangerous disadvantage. When we come back, the faith story behind the mission to the moon, some 50 years since Apollo 11. Stay with us.
Prophecy thousands of years old.
We were called to be a light to the world.
Being fulfilled today. Discover how. Get to life. Call 1-800-700-7000.
We consider it our duty to reach out and help others around the world.
For a gift of $10 or more, you can own the acclaimed CBN documentary To Life. Just call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to cbn.com.
To treat a human, no matter what he is, which religious he have, which color he is. This is what I'm doing.
See how the people of Israel are fulfilling prophecy.
History is being written, and I want to be a part of it.
By sharing their knowledge.
In Africa, in Asia, in South America, in East Europe.
And their love.
This is how we work. This is us.
Get to life. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to cbn.com.
Protect your sleep and discover how to improve the quality of your life. A free DVD or booklet from the Christian Broadcasting Network.
If you're not a great sleeper, you can do things to make yourself a great sleeper. If you're already a pretty good sleeper, you can enhance your sleep and be even better.
5 leading experts help remove the obstacles between you and restorative sleep.
When you don't get a restful night's sleep, you wake up with an accumulation of stress.
Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com to get your free DVD or booklet today.
Everything you do better with a good night's sleep.
You'll discover how food affects your sleep, how to put insomnia to rest, explore effective remedies for sleep apnea, and much more in Protect Your Sleep. Wake up to your best life and get Protect Your Sleep today. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com to get your free DVD or booklet.
Next week marks 50 years since the first man landed on the moon, and we're hearing the faith story behind the Apollo missions.
Yeah, from prayer in space to communion on the moon. CBN News national correspondent Paul Strand spoke to author Bill Federer to find out how God figured into the giant leap for mankind.
We're speaking with William Federer, who's the author of AmericanMinute.com, a daily history lesson on the internet. And Bill, you know a lot about the Apollo missions. Now, this Apollo 11 was about the first thing that happened was a spiritual act on the moon. Can you tell us about it?
Right, so the Eagle lands, and before Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong get off, Buzz Aldrin celebrates communion in the lunar module. And he was a Presbyterian, went to the Webster Presbyterian Church in Houston. The pastor, Dean Woodruff, talked about commemorating this momentous event in a special way and gave him a little silver cup, which is on display at the church. And he pours the grape juice into 1/6 gravity. And so it does this little curl in there. And then he reads John 15, I'm the vine and you are the branches. And then he celebrates communion. So the very first things consumed on the moon was communion.
Now, because of something that had happened earlier on the Apollo 8 mission, I understand NASA was a little leery about doing this publicly. What happened?
Right, so right before Buzz Aldrin celebrated communion, he asked for radio silence and said that hopes that those on Earth will, in their own way, celebrate this momentous event. But a couple Apollo missions earlier, Apollo 8, Frank Borman, Jim Lovell, and Bill Anders, they're circling the moon on Christmas Eve, 1968. And they read the first 8 lines from the book of Genesis over the airwaves to the Earth. And there was an atheist named Madeleine Murray O'Hare, and she threatens to sue NASA. So from that time on, they said, if you want to do something spiritual, we're going to do it with the microphone off.
Aldrin had another spiritual moment publicly on the way back. What did he say?
Well, here they're in the lunar module, or the Columbia, coming back, and he says, this has been more than 3 men on a mission to the moon. Personally, in reflecting on the events of the past several days, a verse from Psalms comes to mind. When I consider the heavens, the work of thy fingers, and the moon and the stars which thou hast made, ordained, what is man that thou art mindful of him? And then, of course, Neil Armstrong says, to all those that are listening on Earth, God bless you and good night, from Apollo 11.
God got in there twice. Not that long after Apollo 11, Apollo 13 had a real crisis in space. And how did that end up bringing God into the entire world's consciousness?
So an oxygen tank blows up, and they have to give up their plans of landing on the moon and their goals to make it back to Earth safely. And so President Nixon has a National Day of Prayer. And they're praying at the Chicago Board of Trade and the Wailing Wall and the Vatican. All around the world, they're praying. They even minted coins. And the astronauts are able to piece together an oxygen filter, transfer the electrical charge from the lunar landing module back into the command module, and then they're landing it near a hurricane. And they have to last minute move it 215 miles to the opposite direction. And so this was commemorated with Nixon having a day of Thanksgiving. To celebrate. And the cover of Time magazine says, when the whole world prayed.
Charles Duke was a Christian on Apollo 16. What did he see on the moon that made him realize that the Bible knew about some scientific facts that weren't discovered for like thousands of years by science?
Well, this is 1972, Apollo 16, and Charles Duke later says, in Isaiah 40:22, it is said, it is he that sitteth upon the circle of the earth. And in Job 26:7, it is written, he hangeth the earth upon nothing. And it goes on, who told Isaiah that the earth was a circle? And now did the writer of Job, and how did the writer of Job know that the earth was hung upon nothing? So this is Charles Duke acknowledging that this is God that created the world.
Man. All right. Well, thank you so much, William Feder. We've been speaking with William Feder, author of TheAmericanMinute.com.
One small step for man, powered by one big God.
Incredible. That's so cool. All right. Have a great weekend, everybody.